Good morning to all. I am Mrs. G. Shanta, librarian of Arulmigu Palani Andavar Arts College for Women from Palani. First, I would like to thank our management and principal madam for their support and encouragement to conduct a 2-day awareness program on Indian constitutional obligations. Today, Dr. T. Jennifer, Assistant Professor of History of Arlanandar College from Madurai, is going to deliver a speech on our fundamental rights of Indian Constitution. Madam has published 12 papers in journals and she has conducted seminars and webinar classes. Now, I welcome Dr. Jennifer Madam to give a speech on fundamental rights of Indian citizens. Welcome, Madam.
Good morning, all of you. I am Jennifer, Assistant Professor of History, Arlanandar College. It's my pleasure to meet all of you in this platform. Today, we are going to discuss about fundamental rights. The Constitution of India listed the rights to the citizens of India that would be specially protected and known as the fundamental rights. Here, what's the meaning of fundamental? Why it has mentioned like that? Because the Constitution has separately listed and made special provisions for the protection of fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are the basic human rights enshrined in the Constitution of India. It's very essential to everyone's life. They are the basic feature of the Constitution. It guaranteed to all citizens of India. They are applied without discrimination on the basis of race, religion, gender, caste, etc. Fundamental rights are different from other rights available to the citizens of India. I mean, ordinary legal rights. We all know what is ordinary legal rights. Ordinary legal rights are protected and enforced by ordinary law. But fundamental rights are protected and guaranteed by the Constitution of India. Ordinary rights may be changed or amended by the legislature by ordinary lawmaking process. But your fundamental right may only be changed by amending the Constitution itself. Judiciary has the powers and the responsibility to protect the fundamental rights in case any government's action violates it. It's also assigned by the Constitution. If judiciary found any act of the government equivalent to violation of the fundamental rights, can be declared that act illegal or restrict them to do further so. However, fundamental rights have some reasonable restriction and hence they are not absolute in nature. We will see it in further. The preamble to our Constitution speaks of ensuring all its citizens equality, liberty and justice. Fundamental rights put this promise into effect. Actually, fundamental rights described as the Magna Carta of India. Before see that, we should know what is Magna Carta. Magna Carta is the great charter of English liberties granted by King John on June 15th, 1215 AD. Very first, it established the principle that everyone is subject to the law, even the king, and guarantees the rights of individual. That's why it is one of the most important document in history. I have posted the picture of the document. I get it in net. Now we see why fundamental rights described as the Magna Carta of India. It contains a very long and a comprehensive list of justiciable fundamental rights and guaranteed by the Constitution to all persons without any discrimination. They uphold the equality of all individuals, the dignity of the individual. They prevent the establishment of an authoritarian and despotic rule in the country and protect the liberties and freedoms of the people against the invasion by the state. In short, they aim at establishing a government of laws and not of men. The fundamental rights are named so because they are guaranteed and protected by the Constitution, which is the fundamental law of the land. They are fundamental also in the sense that they are most essential for all-round development. It means material, intellectual, moral and spiritual of the individuals. The Constitution of India provides 6 fundamental rights which are mentioned in Articles 12 to 35 in Part 3. First, right to equality, Articles 14 to 18. Right to freedom, Articles 19 to 22. Right against exploitation, Articles 23 to 24. Right to freedom of religion, Articles 25 to 28. Cultural and educational rights, Articles 29 to 30. Right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. There was one more fundamental right in the Constitution, that is the right to property. However, this right was deleted from the list of fundamental rights by the 44th Constitutional Amendment. This was because this right proved to be a hindrance towards attaining the goal of socialism and redistributing wealth equitably among the people. Article 12 deals about the term state. It has defined the term for the purpose of Part 3. According to it, the state includes Government and Parliament of India, that is, executive and legislative organs of the Union Government, Government and legislature of states, that is, executive and legislative organs of the state government, all local authorities, that is, municipalities, panchayats, district boards, improvement trusts, etc. All other authorities, that is, statutory or non-statutory authorities like LIC, ONGC, SAIL, etc. Thus, state has been defined in a wider sense so as to include all its agencies. Article 13 gives the power to the Supreme Court and the High Courts that can declare a law unconstitutional and invalid on the ground of contravention of any of the fundamental rights. The term law in Article 13 has been given a wide sense so as to include the permanent laws enacted by the Parliament or the state legislatures, temporary laws like ordinance issued by the President or the state governors, statutory instruments in the nature of delegated legislation like order, bylaw, rule, regulation or notification, and non-legislative sources of law, that is, custom or usage having the force of law. Thus, not only a legislation but any of the above can be challenged in the court as violating a fundamental right and hence can be declared as void. Right to equality. The rule of law is the foundation of Indian democracy that states that the laws apply in the same manner to all irrespective of a person's status. It means that the Prime Minister of the country or a poor farmer in a remote village is subject to the same law and equal treatment. Article 14 states that the government shall not deny to any person equality before the law or the equal protection of the laws, which means law apply in the same manner to all. No person is above the law. Every citizen is subjected to the same laws and same treatment. No person can legally claim any special treatment or privilege on any of the ground, and law makes no distinction between a political leader, a government official, and an ordinary citizen. Article 15 states that no citizen can be discriminated against on the basis of his or her religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth. Article 15 further enhanced the right to equality by providing that every citizen shall have equal access to public places like shops, restaurants, hotels, and cinema halls. Similarly, there shall be no restriction with regard to the use of wells, tanks, bathing ghats, roads, playgrounds, and places of public resorts maintained by the government. Article 16 states that the state cannot discriminate against anyone in the matters of employment. Article 17 abolishes the practices of untouchability in any form, which states that every person has access to all public places, including playgrounds, hotels, shops, etc. The rule of equality before law is not absolute, and there are constitutional and other exceptions to it. The President of India and the Governor of States, Parliament and state legislatures, MPs and MLAs having some immunities. Article 31C is an exception to Article 14. It provides that the laws made by the state for implementing the directive principles contained in Class B or Class C of Article 39 cannot be challenged on the ground that they are violative of Article 14. The Supreme Court held that where Article 31C comes in, Article 14 goes out. There are three exceptions to this general rule of non-discrimination. The state is permitted to make any special provision for women and children. For example, reservation of seats for women in local bodies or provision of free education for children. The state is permitted to make any special provisions for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. For example, reservation of seats or fee concession in public educational institutions. The state is empowered to make any special provisions for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens or for the scheduled castes or scheduled tribes regarding their admission to educational institutions, including private educational institutions, whether aided or unaided by the state, except the minority educational institutions. Article 17 abolishes untouchability and forbids its practice in any form. The term untouchability has not been defined either in the Constitution or in the Act. Under the Protection of Civil Rights Act 1955, the offences committed on the ground of untouchability are punishable. The Act declares the following acts as offences: preventing any person from entering any place of public worship or from worshipping therein, justifying untouchability on traditional, religious, philosophical or other grounds, denying access to any shop, hotel or places of public entertainment, insulting a person belonging to scheduled caste or the ground of untouchability, refusing to admit persons in hospitals, educational institutions or hostels established for public benefit, preaching untouchability directly or indirectly, and refusing to sell goods or render services to any person. Article 18 abolishes titles except a military or academic distinction. It means major, general and doctor, they all are applicable, but it prohibits the state from conferring any title or any body, whether a citizen or a foreigner. It prohibits a citizen of India from accepting any title from any foreign state. A foreigner holding any office of profit or trust under the state cannot accept any title from any foreign state without the consent of the President. No citizen or foreigner holding any office of profit or trust under the state is to accept any present, emolument or office from or under any foreign state without the consent of the President. From the above, it is clear that the hereditary titles of nobility like Maharaja, Raj Bahadur, Rai Bahadur, Rai Sahib, Diwan Bahadur, etc., which were conferred by colonial states are banned by Article 18, as these are against the principle of equal status of right to freedom. Freedom means non-interference and absence of restrictions in one's affairs by others, whether it be the individuals or the government. The Constitution of India provides all citizens freedom under Article 19 to do any of these following acts: right to freedom of speech and expression, right to form assembly in a peaceful manner, right to form associations and unions, right to move freely throughout the country, right to reside in any part of the country, and right to practice any profession or to carry on any occupation, trade or business. However, there are certain reasonable restrictions that can be imposed upon the citizens by the government in the larger interests of the society. The expression of freedoms should not cause public nuisance or disorder. This freedom of one should not violate others' right to freedom. Freedom is not unlimited right to do what one wants. Accordingly, the government can impose certain reasonable restrictions in the larger interests of the society. The Honorable Supreme Court of India has explained the freedom under Article 21 as no citizen can be killed unless the court has ordered a death sentence. No person can be arrested or detained by the police officer unless he has proper legal justification. As per the guidelines settled by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, a police officer, while arresting a person, has to follow some procedures. The police officer is duty bound to inform the person the reason of his arrest and detention, and the person so arrested has the right to know the reason for his arrest. It shall be the duty of the police officer to produce the arrested person before the nearest magistrate within a period of 24 hours of arrest. The arrested person has the right to consult a lawyer of his choice for his defense. Article 20 grants protection against arbitrary and excessive punishment to an accused person. It contains three provisions in that direction. First, no ex post facto law. What is ex post facto law? It means a law that makes illegal an act that was legal when committed, increases the penalties for an infraction after it has been committed, or changes the rules of evidence to make conviction easier. And no double jeopardy. It means no person shall be prosecuted and punished for the same offence more than once. And then no self-incrimination. No person accused of any offence shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. Article 21 declares that no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedure established by law. Article 21 in a sense is limitless in its scope, as it embodies everything that a human being requires to live a quality life, so that he or she can afford the opportunities to make his or her life better, more fruitful and secure. Article 21A declares that the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14 years in such a manner as the state may determine. Thus, this provision makes only elementary education a fundamental right and not higher or professional education. This provision was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002. This amendment is a major milestone in the country's aim to achieve education for all. So, the government described this step as the dawn of the second revolution in the chapter of citizens' rights. Article 22 grants protection to persons who are arrested or detained. Detention is of two types, namely punitive and preventive. Punitive detention is to punish a person for an offence committed by him after trial and conviction in a court. Preventive detention, on the other hand, means detention of a person without trial and conviction by a court. Its purpose is not to punish a person for a past offence, but to prevent him from committing an offence in the near future. Thus, preventive detention is only a precautionary measure and based on suspicion. Article 22 has two parts. The first part deals with the cases of ordinary law, and the second part deals with the cases of preventive detention law. The first part of Article 22 confers the following rights on a person who is arrested or detained under an ordinary law. Right to be informed of the grounds of arrest. Right to consult and be defended by a legal practitioner. Right to be produced before a magistrate within 24 hours, excluding the journey time. Right to be released after 24 hours unless the magistrate authorizes further detention. The second part of Article 22 grants protection to persons who are arrested or detained under a preventive detention law. The detention of a person cannot exceed 3 months unless on advisory board reports sufficient cause for extended detention. The board is to consist of judges of a high court. The grounds of detention should be communicated to the detainee. However, the facts considered to be against the public interest need not be disclosed. The detainee should be afforded an opportunity to make a representation against the detention order. Article 23 prohibits traffic in human beings and forced labor. It protects the individual not only against the state but also against private persons. The expression traffic in human beings include selling and buying of men, women and children like goods. Immoral traffic in women and children including prostitution, devadasis and slavery. To punish these acts, the Parliament has made the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956. Article 24. The Parliament of India has enacted laws to implement constitutional right that prohibits children below 14 years of age from working in hazardous industries such as beedi making, firecrackers and matches, printing and dyeing. India is a secular state, which means the state has no official religion and India does not protect any one religion over the other religion. The fundamental rights under Article 25 to 28 facilitate individuals the freedom to live by their religious beliefs and practices as they interpret these beliefs. Every citizen in India has liberty to profess, practice and propagate the religion that he or she believes in. Every sect or a religious group is free to manage its religious affairs, but it is subject to reasonable restrictions debarring a person or organization to compel another person to convert into his religion by means of force, fraud, inducement or allurement. This right is in the form of restrictions upon the government not to compel any person to pay any taxes for the promotion or maintenance of any particular religion or religious institutions. Article 28 gives the right to the educational institutions run or ordered by the government, neither any religious instruction can be imparted nor can any person be compelled to take part in any religious instruction or to attend any religious worship. The democracy is based upon the wishes of the majority. In this system, the right and interest of the minorities need to be protected by developing a mechanism that cannot be changed by the majority. Therefore, in a democratic country, special protection is provided in the constitution to preserve and develop the language, culture, and religion of minorities. Any section of citizens with a distinct language or culture has the right to conserve its language, culture, and religious practices. Article 30 provides educational rights, which states that all minorities, religious or linguistic groups having a distinct language, script, or culture of its own can set up their own educational institutions in order to preserve and develop their language, script, or culture. A person aggrieved by the violation of any of his or her fundamental right can approach either to the Supreme Court or High Court for the restoration of his or her fundamental rights. The enforceability of rights is a very important aspect of all fundamental rights, and hence it is called as the right to constitutional remedies. According to Dr. Ambedkar, the right to constitutional remedies is the heart and soul of the Constitution. If someone violates someone's fundamental rights, then he or she can approach either a High Court or directly the Supreme Court to get proper remedy. The Supreme Court or the High Court can issue orders and give directives to the government for the enforcement of fundamental rights. Following are the 5 writs or orders issued by either the Supreme Court or High Courts. First one is habeas corpus. A writ of habeas corpus means that the court orders that the arrested person should be presented before the court. The court can also order to set free an arrested person if the manner and or grounds of arrest are not lawful or not satisfactory. Second one is mandamus. This writ is issued when a court finds that a particular office holder is not doing legal duty and thereby is infringing on the right of an individual. Prohibition. This writ is issued by a higher court, High Court or Supreme Court, when a lower court has considered a case which is going beyond its jurisdiction. Quo warranto. If a court finds that a person is holding office but is not entitled to hold that office, it issues the writ of quo warranto and restricts that persons from acting as an office holder. Certiorari. Under this writ, a higher court orders a lower court or another authority to transfer a matter pending before it to the higher authority or court. Article 33 empowers the Parliament to restrict or abrogate the fundamental rights of the members of the armed forces. Armed forces means paramilitary forces, police forces, intelligence agencies, etc. The power to make laws under Article 33 is conferred only on Parliament and not on state legislatures. Article 34 provides for the restrictions on fundamental rights, where martial law is in force in any area within the territory of India. The concept of martial law has been borrowed in India from the English common law. However, the expression martial law has not been defined anywhere in the Constitution. Literally, it means military rule. Article 35 lays down that the power to make laws to give effect to certain specified fundamental rights shall vest only in the Parliament and not in the state legislatures. This provision ensures that there is uniformity throughout India with regard to the nature of those fundamental rights and punishment for their infringement. The above set fundamental rights all are not for all citizens. Some of them are available only to the citizens, while others are available to all persons, whether citizens, foreigners, or legal persons like corporations or companies. Article 15, Article 16, Article 19, 29, and 30 are only for Indian citizens, not for foreigners. Dear friends, fundamental rights are more important because it protects the liberties and freedom of the citizens against any invasion by the state, prevent the establishment of the authoritarian and dictatorial rule in the country. They are very essential for the all-round development of the individuals and the country. Fundamental rights are essentially human rights but are regulated by the Constitution in India. They integrate him with the society and at the same time as they incorporate educative value also. A citizen is able to understand the importance of all the members of the society. The Constitution also provides for enforcement of these rights, hence they have legal value also, which empower a citizen to protect, respect and fulfill the rule of law. They uphold the equality of all individuals, the dignity of the individual and the nation's unity. Thank you so much.